So we do need a little bit of refreshment as we go along. Don't forget the new podcast is there for you to download. What have you whipped away from the drinks trolley today, Suze?
I've gone for a very lovely pet nat, a rosé from Italy. It's called Integral Pet Nat, bottled before fermentation finishes, so naturally sparkling and only 10.5%. So
that sounds
very refreshing.
That sounds very good. Thank you. We'll have a couple of glasses of that afterwards, obviously.
Obviously.
And I'll have Matt's.
Yeah, thanks.
Today's confession comes from Peely. I should say probably 12 if you're eating.
Okay, that's always a good sign, yeah.
Peely says, "Hi Simon, for the following I seek forgiveness from your collective. This confession occurred a short time ago. In fact, in the last couple of weeks.
Oh.
I love the confessions feature on your show, but I've never had anything remotely interesting to send in. The stars aligned recently, however, when my confession ironically occurred because of your confession slot. I was cooking as usual for my wife, who we shall call Bridget because of her likeness to Jones, one in looks and behaviour, uncanny actually, and my children, Pivy, age 19, and Chunks, who's 21. I'm imagining that these are nicknames.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Both back from university for the summer. All right, Pivy and Chunks. And Bridget and Peely. Now, I think that I provide good, wholesome home cooking every night, but my efforts sometimes result in negative feedback. Not spag bol again, I hear, as thank you for providing delicious and nutritious food.
Yes.
And we usually result in one of the following responses from me. 1, feel free to make dinner yourself. 2, you can always put a review on TripAdvisor. And 3, this is not a hotel.
Yeah, there you go.
Severe eye rolling then follows from Gen Z. The fussiness baffles me, as Pivy seems to have lived exclusively on chips, chicken and curry from a dodgy kebab shop in the northern city where she goes to university. Chunks has returned from university in Germany, where his diet appears to have consisted mostly of Königsberger Klopse, which is meatballs in cream sauce.
Yep.
Schwarzalder Kirschtorte, which is
Black
Forest Gatto for dessert, washed down with a cheeky Weinstefan Hefeweißbier, which is a yeast wheat beer. That's not bad.
I love that. Yeah, thanks very much.
That's an interesting menu. I just don't get the Gen Z fussiness around food. They go on about use-by dates. Daddy, are you sure the meat is okay? Yes, it's fine. In my day, there weren't any use-by dates. If it doesn't smell and it's not green, you ate it.
Wow.
Cue inevitable eye rolling and another opportunity to explain to them how they've never had it so good. What it was like when I was young. Okay, it's a generational divide here.
Yeah.
So there I was, slaving away cooking dinner with Greatest Hits Radio on in the background. I was responding to feedback, so as a change from the usual menu, I was making a salmon and rice salad dish. Ooh. This menu choice meeting the approval of Runner Son. We needed a balanced meal before going to his running club that evening. That's Chunks, obviously.
Okay.
Going without his Weinstefan Hefeweißbier. Bridget had very kindly brought me a new vegetable peeler, which was sharp as anything. So I thought I'd make some vegetable ribbons with carrot and cucumber, hoping for positive reviews for a more sophisticated dish. As I was peeling slivers of said ingredients into a bowl for the salad, I was listening to the confession. He caused me to laugh out loud, and momentarily I lost control of my fine motor skills. As I drew the new razor-sharp peeler across the carrot, producing a stylish sliver, I took with it a considerable slice from the knuckle of a finger on my left hand, probably about the size of a pea. I looked all over for the offending detached knuckle, but can only assume it had landed in the salad. I rummaged through but couldn't locate it. What to do? Chuck the lovingly prepared salad out and give them spag bol from the freezer, or carry on? I chose the latter. So I must apologise to my family for the additional ingredient in the salad, although it did match the meal requirement for protein from Running Son. And when I say rummage through, I had a quick look, couldn't see it, and carried on cooking. Which member of the family actually ate it? That's my knuckle we're talking about. Who knows? But the meal itself went down well with 5-star reviews. I therefore have to seek forgiveness for my sloppiness in the kitchen, lack of care whilst peeling, but mostly for the unusual ingredient in the salad, as well as my lack of willingness to find said foreign item, my knuckle, before serving the dish to my family. Maybe the aligning of the stars was as a result of me boring on about the good old days, and I was being punished for that. Said finger was very hurty after my inadvertent slicing. Really? Oh, you surprised me. So in mitigation, I shall forthwith not bore the children anymore about how we had it good in the old days. I would like you to consider further mitigation for my sinful behaviour, as I'm sure I wouldn't have taken such a large chunk of my finger and put it in the salad if I hadn't been laughing so much at your confession feature on the radio. Your albeit tenuous involvement in this incident may sway your decision towards forgiveness, although I understand fully that this argument might not hold much water with Susie. Yours in forgiveness and still a massive hole in my knuckle, even now, says Peely in Bury St Edmunds. As soon as we got to the bit about the vegetable peeler being sharp with vegetable ribbons, carrot, cucumber, I kind of knew where this was going. But losing your knuckle, would that not resolve in lots of blood and a need for a plaster, at least? Anyway, Sister Suze, what do you say to Peely?
Yeah, Peely, do you know what? He's got a point. It was, I guess, in a way, our fault for just being too funny. And I kind of see what he's saying there. But yeah, surely a bit unhygienic. Like, I'm a bit worried for his safety. Like, does he not hurt himself? Were there not a lot of blood? Is there? Oh, it just is a bit too much finger food, I guess.
Yes,
you would say.
I suppose you would, yes.
But as much as I would like to forgive him, I do think that maybe he should have try to look for it a bit more carefully. So
if there's a crunchy bit in there, that's come out of my finger. I mean, I think that's fairly straightforward to say. Or would you rather have a Königsberger Klopse?
Yes, please, 2 of those. So I'm going to forgive. Let's not forget that, of course, this all occurred because he was finding this feature so unbelievably funny. So that means definitely forgiven as far as I'm concerned. Also, how is Chunks going running on meatballs and gatto? That doesn't make any sense at all. He's doing very well.
And
metabolism must be through the roof. And knuckle in the salmon. So, I mean, you know, it happens, isn't it? The rule we've all learnt there is don't bother with vegetable ribbons because, or vegetables at all, in fact. So, for all those reasons, I'm going to forgive.
I don't think we have learned that. Anyway.
Yes, I think we have.
All right. People's verdict, please. 61054. Forgiveness for Peely, yes or no? However, just before the news, a rather disconcerting confession from Peely, who was trying to do the best for his Gen Z kids, but in the course of making some fresh food, he added a knuckle from his hand from courtesy of a new vegetable peeler, which was very sharp. Apparently, it was our fault because he was laughing so much he'd lost his motor skills. But he was apologising for sloppiness in the kitchen. The people's verdict, here it is.
So Adam, about to cook in his truck near Luton, says, not forgiven. How disgusting leaving your knuckles in the salad for other sweet. If you did that in a restaurant, you'd have to give the guests a discount. But Eddie in Edinburgh says, absolutely forgiven. Had a similar situation when testing out the sharpness of our new mandolin grater with a carrot, but without the safety guard. Said grater went right back in the box and has gone through 2 house moves, but never seen the light of day again. And Andrew in Chippenham says, totally forgiven. Similar kitchen mishap occurred back in the day when my sous chef wife sliced the end of her thumb into a large vat of Thai curry at the restaurant she was working at. Rather than bin the lot, she changed the specials blackboard to Thai curry with ladies' fingers.
Right.
Which is true.
Which is true. It's a gag. It's also probably not very...
no, very good.
No, not very good and not health and safety compliant.
No.
Thank you very much indeed for all the verdicts and thank you for the confessions. You get the general idea. There's a whole bunch of them on our podcast, but send yours, please, to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Okay, it's confession time, prefixed as it is by a nice beverage from the drinks trolley. Hoping for something light and refreshing. What do we have today, Suze?
I've gone for a very tasty, full-flavoured session pale ale from Arbor Ales. It's 3.4% and it's called Pocket Rocket.
Oh, all right. And 3.4, that's okay. You say that's you can have like a tiny sip of that before we finish the show.
Yes.
Thanks for that from the drinks trolley. And here we go with today's confession. By the way, don't forget the Confessions podcast arrives for you on Friday. And in the latest podcast research, it has revealed that it's the #1 podcast in the world now.
Oh, is it #1 in the world?
Yeah, it used to be Joe Rogan, and now he's yesterday's news.
Oh, he is.
Now it's the Confessions podcast. Okay, so just so that you know that, I think Susie's going, I'm not quite sure if I can let that one through.
Okay.
Anyway. Today's tale comes from David. Thank you, David, for this particular tale, Simon and the crew. When I was 10, I'm now 64, I was bored at the beginning of the school holidays. I was lying on the sofa and a thought crossed my mind. You must have had many interesting thoughts as a 10-year-old. Well, these were mine, in no particular order. What does chirpy, chirpy, cheep, cheep really mean? What's the difference between hot love and any other kind of love? Well, that's you find out later.
Yes.
You don't need to know that at 10.
Don't want to go there.
And also, how old will I have to be before I can have facial hair like that guy from Mungo Jerry? Anyway, this is what I was thinking. If you like pop music.
Important.
Anyway, my brand new thought was this. I wonder if I take my socks off, I could use the lampshade above the basketball hoop as a basketball hoop and throw my socks onto the lampshade. I'm sure you've all had similar moments of puzzlement, but I thought I might have invented a new sport, throwing my socks into the lampshade.
Okay, yeah. Sounds fine.
I can't think of anything.
No.
Does it?
I tried several times to net the socks, but failed. I never was any good at basketball. I was getting bored with my newfound sport already, but decided on one more attempt. That's the thing when you're 10, you think of a great thing, and then 5 minutes later you think it's boring.
Boring.
Joy of joys, I netted the socks, which remained lodged in the lampshade out of view, but did not affect the light. This was a result. But at that moment, I was called for tea and forgot about the socks. So the next few days, there was a funny, cheesy, burnt smell in the house.
Lovely.
Not overly unpleasant. A bit like a cheese toastie, which were all the rage, but with that something special, something indefinable about it. Over the next few days, my mum's search for the cause of the smell was vigorous in wiping and cleaning every possible surface just in case she'd missed something. I, of course, had forgotten about my sock-throwing antics as it was the school holidays, and I had moved on to other pursuits. Like, for example, how many of my friends could I jump over with my chopper bike if I constructed a ramp and lined them up at the other end of the ramp? I'm not sure you should encourage any of this kind of behaviour at all. Mind you, I'm quite jealous he had a chopper bike and I never had one, even though I asked for one a number of times but didn't get one. Didn't get a Johnny 7 gun either.
Anyway.
Over the next few days, the cheesy smell got stronger and stronger until one day my mum let out a scream because the lampshade was on fire.
Oh!
There were flames erupting everywhere, billowing black smoke filling the room. Fortunately, the soda stream and a bottle of Corona's finest limeade was able to douse the flames. Very good 70s reference.
Limeade.
At this point, I remembered what I had done, but decided, as Matt would say, to keep a sock in it and not confess. Once the drama had subsided and the fire was out, the family examined the remains of the lampshade. There was a strange extra blob on the shade, which I successfully explained was the effect of heat on the shade, quoting some made-up scientific explanation. I think the extra oxygen in the lamp must have reacted with the paint dye, which was too green, and green lampshades are famously dodgy. It was this kind of thing. Anyway, it worked. So therefore, clearly, I need to ask for forgiveness from the family, especially my mother, who tried to find the source of the cheesy smell, and to any of my friends who were injured in my Evel Knievel bicycle stunt riding. I wonder, David, if you should have concentrated on that. It does sound as though maybe that might have caused more long-term damage. However, setting fire to a lampshade is obviously also very dangerous, and please don't try any of these things at home, because don't try and jump over your friends on a bike, and don't throw socks into a lampshade, because all of those things are reprehensible. Susie will get very cross about it. Anyway, what do you wish to say to David, Suze?
Well, David, what happened to the bin in the corner? Couldn't you just chuck your socks into the bin? That's not going to cause any fire hazards. That's just silly, full-on fire hazard. And also trying to jump over your friends on your bike. This is all just too much for me.
We all did that. I mean, those of us who had chopper bikes, was not me, but if you had a chopper bike, you wanted to jump over your friends.
Yeah.
Did you not?
Yeah, I just can't condone any of these behaviour. Danger, high voltage.
Oh, yeah. Straight on it. Wow.
Straight on it. How about that? Well, it was a classic, you don't throw your socks into the lamp.
No.
If you remember that there is danger, because there's high voltage.
Yes.
The smell.
And the stink, and the flames. Matthew.
Well, my knowledge of lampshades is there's normally a hole, isn't there, at the bottom of the lampshades, and maybe there wasn't a hole in the 60s or 70s or whenever David was starting. And maybe as a result of what David was doing, they decided to put a hole in the bottom of the lampshade. So we're all safer now as a result. And maybe he had a point about the green paint. Could be true. Maybe it wasn't true. But, I'm prepared to believe it. For all those reasons, I choose to forgive.
61054 is the text number. First word is Simon for the People's Verdict. First of all, let me remind you about the confession that we heard just before the news, which came from David. As a 10-year-old lying on the sofa, he invented a new game, throwing his socks into the lampshade, and eventually something stuck. Unfortunately, many days later, the whole fire thing took off, and the lamp burst into flames with hilarious consequences. On this occasion.
Yeah.
Please do not try this at home. So he ignited the lampshade and the People's Verdict is in.
So James says, forgiven. Hilarious confession. Sounds like the kind of thing my 7-year-old son Oliver would do. Not forgiven, though, says Vicky in Hull. This was so silly. He could have set fire to the house. Not to mention his antics ruined a perfectly nice lampshade. And Tim in Sutton Coldfield says, forgiven. David was only 10. These things are quickly forgotten. He definitely put his foot in it and didn't toe the line by confessing. Betty thought, darn it. Oh,
yeah. I mean, none of them as good as. I mean, David's joke was put a sock in it, which is actually better than all of those.
So good.
Well, average.
Yes.
David, thank you very much for the confession. You get a smart speaker, and if you fancy having a confession read out, you send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio. And what we need now is a stiff drink, or just something light and refreshing. You never know what Susie's going to have plucked from the top of the trolley. What are we going for today?
What we need today is a bit of Zen, and this is Blunt Rock Brewery from Rock in Cornwall, quite a newish brewery.
Yeah.
It's their alcohol-free pale ale, 0.5%. Little bit of Zen for everybody.
Thank you very much. I can have a half of that now, can't I? Because it's alcohol-free. All right, very good. Today's confession comes from, let's say it comes from Bert. Yes.
Okay, let's say that then. Let's say Bert.
Coming from Bert. Father, Simon, Brother Matt, and the sisters of the unforgiving and the congregation of the fair-minded listener. I wish to seek forgiveness for my part in an incident that took place over 40 years ago in the early 80s, when I was a second-year student, what was then a small northern agricultural college. We get quite a few confessions from agricultural colleges.
Well, they're ripe for it, aren't they?
Yeah. Good evening to all young farmers. With the college home to about 180 live-in students in a remote rural setting, the highlight of the college calendar was the annual Rag Week, held every June, dedicated to raising money for local charities and also shenanigans. With our course's theory lectures being delivered in a couple of unlocked, flat-roofed, freestanding wooden classrooms that slightly resembled scout huts, we thought it would be a perfect wheeze to relocate the first year's classroom furniture onto the roof, arranging it in a perfect mirror image of its indoor layout. So under cover of darkness and after some meticulous planning, we set to work. Up went the lecturer's wooden lectern, the demonstration table, and around 30 student chairs, the kind with large wooden fold-down armrests for note-taking. The only thing we left behind was the overhead projector to prevent any electrical damage from the early morning dew or unexpected rain. For the finishing touch, we borrowed the mobile blackboard from the lecture theatre. The final result looked superb, silhouetted in the moonlight. Elated with our efforts, we returned to our rooms, excited to see the college's reaction later that morning. When arriving for our morning lectures, we were met by an amazing sight. Not only did the al fresco classroom look magnificent in the early June sunshine, but to our delight, the first years had climbed up and taken their usual places, embracing the idea of outdoor learning. Better still, with that day's Rag Week theme being nightwear, we had the comical sight of 30 burly agricultural students in pyjamas, sat cheerfully on the roof, awaiting their lecturer. As we made our way to our desks in our classroom, our amusement turned to sheer joy when we heard the unmistakable booming voice of Chumper Cholton, the animal nutrition lecturer, as he approached the classrooms. Chumper was considered the strictest lecturer on campus, notorious for his intolerance of student antics. As he approached the scene, his fury erupted. "What on earth are you doing up there, you idiots? Get down, you blithering imbeciles." After a 10-minute standoff, or rather sit-off, with Chomper barking such comments as, "It's your time you're wasting, not mine." The first years reluctantly surrendered their ambitions of outdoor learning and began to climb down lowering furniture piece by piece. Inside our own classroom, we tried to look innocent, while secretly reveling in the chaos we'd caused. That smugness quickly evaporated, though, when we heard the first year's classroom roof start to creak.
Oh, no.
Ominously. It quickly became clear the roof wasn't designed to support the weight of a herd of hefty, pyjama-clad students. What a surprise. We sat silently, pale-faced, unable to look at one another whilst the roof groaned and moaned as the students climbed down. After probably the longest 10 minutes of our lives, the final student and desk rejoined terra firma. Only then could we breathe again. We were relieved that the roof had survived, though it did now sport a suspicious dip in the middle. As the days went on, the Rag Week festivities and shenanigans continued, with the rooftop antics soon becoming a distant memory. We were blessed with glorious June weather at the start of the week. However, by Thursday evening, the weather broke with a big thunderstorm and torrential rain. The downpour continued throughout the night, and it was still raining as we hurried to our Friday morning lectures. When we arrived, we were surprised to find the first years crammed into the shared cloakroom, with some even spilling into our classroom. When we asked why they weren't going into their classroom, they opened the door. The sight inside was shocking. The room was a mess. The ceiling had pretty much collapsed.
Oh, dear.
Gasps, shouting, cursing, and prayers for deliverance were then uttered. The vice principal then appeared and calmly took control of the situation. He relocated the first years to the dining room whilst he assessed the damage with the facilities manager. As the students filed past the vice principal, one clown said, "Could sitting on the roof have caused this?" This instantly gave him a rather large clue as to the cause of the watery mess and the opportunity to hold the first years responsible for the perforated roof, thereby clearing the six of us of any blame. I don't seek forgiveness from Chomper, as he was always looking for an excuse to berate students, or from the college, as the classrooms, known as temporary classrooms 1 and 2, should have been condemned many years earlier. But I do seek forgiveness from the first years, who, with most of them living on campus, lost their £100 damage bonds to cover the cost of re-roofing the ramshackle learning facility. So this is a confession with real consequence. If you damage the property, you get your deposit taken away, as I discovered in my third year at Warwick. Though that wasn't my fault.
Oh, yeah, really? What was this?
That was because we got stuck in the shower playing...
You got stuck in the shower?
Yeah, we were playing sardines, and there were 8 of us got stuck in the shower. We had to be rescued by the fire brigade, who smashed the door in, and obviously that caused damage, but it was a mistake.
You couldn't get out of the shower?
No, because the door jammed. The lock
so
jammed.
There were 8 of you in the shower and
yes.
You couldn't get out?
Fully clothed.
Why were there 8 of you in the shower?
Because we were playing sardines. Anyway,
yes.
Sorry, we got distracted there, but you lose your deposit.
Sure
I lost my deposit. Well, my parents did. Sister Susie, what do you say?
Well, I just think this is just danger, isn't it? It's a roof-raising story, and in hindsight, very funny. But you should have owned up when the first years got their money taken off them, and for that reason, I can't forgive you.
It is a little bit of... Danger, loose ceiling tiles.
Loose ceiling,
yes.
yeah. Well, it was all going on there. I'm going to forgive. It wasn't really that. I mean, they put the stuff up there. Maybe it was a bit their fault. But then, as the vice principal pointed out, it was probably someone else's fault. And whoever put damage bonds, I'd never heard of that.
No,
for a classroom. Yeah, for a classroom though. For you, I get it if it's halls, but if it's a classroom,
they were on campus. They were on campus.
Yes.
They damaged the campus. You lose your deposit.
Well, I think they'd have had a good chance of appeal. And I would have gone in there as the QC myself. So for reasons that I've already outlined,
yes.
Your Honour, I'm going to forgive.
It's basically all down to you. 61054. Do you forgive Bert, yes or no, for his outrageous up on the roof confession? Matt has the people's verdict.
Not forgiven, says Cheryl in Leeds. I feel sorry for the students and lecturers who were not involved in the shenanigans, but had to deal with the consequences of a classroom out of action.
Always.
But Zoe in Bromley says forgiven. I blame the system. Why was the roof of the building not strong enough? A roof really should be able to take some tables and chairs, surely.
30 students?
Yes, apparently. And John says forgiven. As an ex-agricultural student responsible for similar games, the second years must be forgiven. After all, the first years went and actually sat on the roof.
I suppose that's definitely true. Okay, your confession, please, to Confessions at Greatest Hits Radio. Okay, well, it's Drinks Trolley time, just ahead of the confessions. It's always thirsty work, but Suze always provides something for us. Just ahead of Nigel, of course, who provides something else for us. But what have you got from the trolley today, Suze?
I have gone with, quite like the name of this one, it's called Employee of the Month.
Okay, very good.
It's a milk stout. It's 4%, dark and malty. And I also like the name of the brewery. They've called themselves Pretty Decent Beer Company.
Okay, all right, nice size baby, pretty decent beer. That's the way that goes. I'm not sure about a milk stout.
Yes.
It's very tasty.
Is it very tasty?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have that a little bit later on. Thank you. Today's confession comes from Tony. A little bit racy in places.
Ooh, I like.
Simon and the team, this has been sent in because he heard a confession a while back which related to the language laboratory at school.
Oh, yes.
When I was in my GCE/CSE years, GCSEs today, this is the late 70s, Father Simon, French was a compulsory subject. I took this as a sort of unofficial free period, as A, I couldn't see the point in it, and B, I was rubbish at it. French lessons in the end gave me a good share of laughs. That's the way I thought about French. An irresponsible attitude, which we'd like to say, obviously don't try that at school. We used to have language labs as part of our learning, where you could listen to French, answer questions, or undertake spoken translation at your own pace, and replay parts if required. You could also replay your responses, and the teacher could listen in on any of the pupils. This wasn't the way we used it, though, and a particularly memorable event occurred when my best friend Mark was recording a Meg Ryan impression, specifically the one from When Harry Met Sally.
Oh, yeah.
There he was, moaning and groaning for England, when suddenly he heard Miss Lindsay's voice saying, "Mark, whatever is the matter with you?" Not that worldly, our French teacher. I think everyone who went into a language lab also did a little bit of football commentary.
Oh, yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
No?
I've never been to a language
Have you
lab.
not? Oh, okay. Well, it was supposedly improved your French, but it didn't work with me. Or Tony, by the sound of it. Father Simon, the class was divided into two sections for language lab lessons, with those not in the lab undertaking written translation work. So Mark and I are in one half, and our friend Tony is in the other half. We quickly realised that Tony, who was like us, both useless at French and bone idle, was copying one of the French superstars' pupils' translation work from his exercise book when the Shining Star joined us in the lab. This was not a good thing. However, one day we set a trap, and the Shining Star pupil, at the instigation of Mark and me, wrote a completely different English to French translation to that required by the exercise. We hoped Tony would fall for it and just copy. It was quite elaborate, with a removed pair of pages being inserted into Mark's book behind the existing staples, and it worked like a dream. Tony copied it, and thus included phrases like, "I love you, you are the wave, me the naked island."
Wow.
People were less understanding of this kind of thing in 1977, says Tony. He also included, in a piece which was supposed to be about a visit to your grandparents, "I love to love you, baby. I love to love you, baby. When you're laying so close to me, there's no place I'd rather be than with me, To your grandparents? I don't think so. He had some difficulty explaining this to Miss Lindsay, although, unsurprisingly, she twigged that he'd been had. So the whole class was assembled and asked for the guilty party to identify himself or themselves, although there was never any doubt that this was done by a boy. The three of us looked around sheepishly, but Martin, unwisely as it turned out, pretty quickly put his hand up. He then gave sideways glances to Mark and me, clearly expecting us to put up our hands alongside him. But here comes the shameful bit. We did not. We let the more innocent Martin carry the can. All of it. I have carried the guilt of this scurrilous behaviour with me for nearly 50 years. Can I be forgiven, says Tony. Now, my suspicion is there'll be a whole bunch of confessions from the language laboratory where people have left lewd messages, much as Tony has done. But anyway, this is also just not owning up to something that was your fault, and letting someone else carry the can. And Susie never smiles on that kind of behaviour.
No, I think that it's like cheating, but also just setting someone up for like, oh, I just don't like it, and you should have done better, and you should have owned up that it was you. And although, you know, it's quite childish anyway, isn't it, what you actually did? And I'm just not going to forgive you today.
Also, I wonder, I'm quoting Matt here, how thick you'd have to be not to realise that you're writing, I love to love you, baby, I love to love you, baby, I love to love you, baby, a number of times.
Is he writing that in English or in French?
I think he's translating it into English.
So he's writing in English, I love to love you, baby. Unbelievable. How thick, as you say, do you have to be? So, yes, I'm definitely going to forgive because, you know, I mean, he should have seen that coming, shouldn't he? And he had all of he had all the lyrics in there. You are the wave and I am the naked island. What's that all about?
I love you, you are the wave,
yes,
me the naked island.
It's
That's
very...
Je t'aime one en plus again.
Well, continental, isn't
go.
it? Yes, how very nice. So, no, I'm definitely going to forgive because of, you know, he's obviously a bit thick and didn't enjoy his French. And more fool him because there's a whole horizon there that he's denied himself. So, yes, well done. And I forgive.
How would you
Was
say?
that clear?
How would you say more fool him in French?
More fool him.
How would you say it in French?
In French, I would say more fool him.
Okay, that's
how I would say it.
inspirational.
Yes, yeah.
61054.
4 years at university.
People's
Well
Vote.
done.
Wow.
Just before the news, we heard a confession involving the language lab and a fake French translation, which led a poor student to write things like, I love you, you are the wave, me the naked island, I love you, baby, even though he was supposed to be writing about a trip to his grandparents. The people's verdict is in, and here it comes.
Not forgiven, says Kerry. I wouldn't have let my friend take the blame all on his own. That's poor. Mike in Leamington Spa says, forgiven. His friend chose to put his hand up. He didn't have to come clean. He could have just remained silent. But Patricia in Corby says, forgiven, because I got up to all sorts of antics in the language lab. Always such a laugh.
Which is precisely the reason why I think there might be some more language laboratory-based confessions. Plus, we discovered, I've only just remembered, that if you took out the don't try this. If you take out the headphone jack and then you lick it and then you put it back in, everything howls.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah,
but obviously don't try that because that's 1970s technology, obviously. Thanks very much. Send your confession, please, to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.